Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. You're watching The Weekend Painter. My name's Ian. Please like and subscribe if you like what you see, and hit the bell icon for updates for future videos. In this video, I'm going to be repairing the old classic Warhammer River. So here we have the old river. It was in lots of White Dwarfs, lots of codexes, lots of How to Build Wargame Terrain books. Everything from the 90s basically had this river in it. And there's a video that I did a couple of weeks ago, which I will put up in the top somewhere, which lets you know the journey that the river went on. But short story is, it ended up with me. So what I'm going to do today is here it is. I'm going to take it, I'm going to repair it, I'm going to touch up all of this, I'm going to replace some rocks, I'm going to fix the little jetty bit. I've got the entire river, but I'm just going to work on this one section for this video and see if we can get it back looking a bit more like it does here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint all of these areas. So move that out of the way. Get myself something to protect the table. It's just an old chopping board, nothing fancy. And I'm going to use brown oxide, just a dark brown with a big, look at this old, battered old Games Workshop scenery brush. Look at the state of it. So I'm going to grab some of the paint and I'm going to paint it in these areas. The reason for this is when I come to the stage of adding the flock to it, if there's any areas that doesn't get covered in the flock, I don't want the white of the polystyrene shown through. I'd rather the brown show through, at least that way it looks like it's mud. Look at that under there. It's taking some damage over the years. I'm just taking this straight out the pot. I'm not watering it down. There's no technique going on here really. I'm just getting the brown into the on top of all of the white. I think that should do it. The rest is probably going to get covered up. Just wanted the large areas to be covered. There you go. Okay. Next job, I'm going to replace the stones that are around. So I'm just using the white glue, PVA, and the same brush that I used to paint the brown. I'm just going to do little blobs in the areas where the stones have fallen off over the years. Next, just going to sprinkle. No, I'm not. I'm going to pick out some decent stones. There you go. Just a little handful. I'm going to drop them in, just to make sure I've got them covering the right areas. That was a stone there in the river. That's going to be replaced. There you go. A couple more big ones. Now, I'm going to sprinkle some finer sand, or I'm going to pinch some finer sand and sprinkle it into the gaps, just to fill up the gaps between the big rocks. Leave that. Give it some time to set. Whilst that's setting, I'm going to be using a nylon brush that I found here. I'm going to try and see if we can bring this back to life. It's a bit flat. It's been in a box with one layer on top of another for a long time. So I think this is made out of tufts and bristles from a brush. So I'm just going to comb it back into shape so I can get it to stick up a bit more. So whilst I'm waiting for this gravel to dry, I'm going to start getting the bits for the jetty ready. I need to take some measurements of the jetty so I know how long to make the bits of wood. So I need to measure from the shoreline out to where the jetty used to get to. So put that, I'm looking at 1.5 inches. 1.5 inches, there you go, perfect. 1.5 inches long by 1 inch wide. So now I've got the measurements. I can get my small bits of wood and start to chop up the pieces that I need. So I'm looking for 1.5. So that's going to be my 2 sides of the jetty. And now I know that it is 1 inch wide. I need to know how high it is. So I need to measure up this bit. What does that look like to you? In mil. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there we go. Double check. There. Just going to go. Don't know if you can see this really on camera, but there. So now that's my scrap, and that's my leg. That's the 2 sides. And I'm going to use these lollipop sticks, and I'm basically following this guide here, guys. Okay. Same guide for making a bridge, because jetty is kind of just a small bridge, isn't it? So I'm going to do 2 sides, and I'm going to lay the sticks as the planks of wood, but I'm not going to leave these gaps. I'm going to butt them up against each other. So at the minute, these are a bit too thick, so I'm going to split. I'm going to split these sticks down the middle. Shouldn't take too much work. They don't have to be exact. That's those. I want the ends chopped off. Still want rounded edges. So I'm going to take my clippers, bit of scrap, clippers again, more scrap. Look at it flying everywhere. There you go. Now I need to chop these into 1 inch sections. There you go, 8 sections, which I think is going to be more than enough. So we just measure up. The next thing I want to do with these is distress them a little bit. Just chip them with a hobby knife. Just go in, pull out the edges. You can't really see it yet, but once I get to the stage of painting these, putting some washes on them, you'll see these little nicks and grooves. So now all of that's done, I'm going to start gluing all the pieces together. So the first thing I've got to do is get this little section and glue it right there. Now, I am using super glue on wood. The reason being, it's going to dry quicker. I know using proper PVA or wood glue would give it a better seal, but I don't have all day to wait for it to dry. Now that's dry, I need to get the two sides stuck down. So for this side, I am going to be using PVA glue because I can't use the super glue to stick to the polystyrene, it would break. So what I've done is I've dipped one side into the PVA, as you can see, and I'm going to do on the other side is my super glue trick. It's not a trick, it's just using glue. There you go. I'm going to push this in and lay this flat. As they're setting, I'm going to paint PVA glue down each side. This will give me a chance to lay the planks on top, but it won't dry immediately like the super glue does. So that gives me time. If it's not quite in the right way, I can move it around, play around with it, rather than having to get it right first time. Then I'm going to lay these on, one at a time, making sure that they butt up against each other and I don't want any huge gaps. They're all flat, they're all in place. I'm going to leave them for a little bit. There's one other section. If you look on the book here, we've got this post. Now the actual sign of the post has come away, but the post itself is still there. So I'm going to use this spare piece and I'm just going to cut it down, maybe cut it in half, and that's going to become the post. For this one, I will use the super glue. So as I'm waiting for that to dry, I've mixed up some flock and gravel together in a tub, because this is not just plain flock, it's a mix of both. So I'm going to put a lid on, give this a little shake, and hopefully that gives the right effect. When you read what it says in the book, it says all that remains to be done is to paint the flock, the riverbanks, and decorate them with brushes and foliage. It doesn't tell you that they actually mixed flock and gravel together. You can only see that when you actually get up close and have a look at it. So hopefully this mix gives a similar effect. So the next stage I'm going to do is I'm going to add glue to all of these brown sections. Then I'm going to cover it in this mix and hope it blends in well enough. Now that's done, time to grab this and hope it works. This is the messy stage. So I'm just going to throw it all on and let it do its thing. It's just going to be random. Make sure we get all the places that we've just put the glue. Look at the mess it makes everywhere. I'm just going to let that go. Once that's all on there, I'm just going to set it down and leave it to set. So now it's time to touch up those rocks that I added. So again, I'm going to be using Rhinox hide and an old brush, and I'm going to give it all a coat of this dark brown. It's the same brown that I used for the mud. Give that a minute to dry. As I'm waiting for that brown to dry, I'm going to stain the wood. So the wood is going to get an Agrax Earth shade. Back in the day, this would have been just good old GW Brown Wash or Bronzed Flesh, which were both really dark. This is slightly lighter, so I think it'll definitely take more than one. It's going to take maybe 2 or 3 coats. Now that's drying, I'm going to use a large dry brush and some record flesh, and I'm going to touch up some highlights on the stones. So usual dry brushing technique, guys. Bit of tissue, wipe it all off, work it into the bristles, get your brush so that it's almost dry, and then quickly flick it over the area that you're trying to highlight. Build up the layers gradually, and you should get a nice transition which looks pretty pleasing. That's the first layer. You can see that they're starting to blend in now. Second layer, I'm going to take Screaming Skull, and I'm going to take a little bit less than the first one. I'm going to rub all that off as well. So I haven't cleaned my brush in between, so what you get mixed into the bristles is a blend between the Rock Art Flesh and the Screaming Skull. Kind of helps with the transition. And there we go. Same job, same technique, and all of those stones will blend in together. Now, I'm not just hitting the stones that I've just glued on, I'm hitting all of the other stones too. That way, they're all the same colour. This thing being 30 years old, there's no doubt that the pigment in the paint may have changed over time. It might be looking slightly different than what it was. So refresh it all by going over it with a nice clean coat. All these old areas, I'm going to give a quick pass just to brighten them up. And that should be that. So now that bridge is dry, I'm going back to Rock Art Flesh, and I'm going to give it a quick pass. Get my brush really dry. Pick out these highlights. I'm trying to go against the grain and against the sharp edges. So I'm doing the corners here and the edges here. Just the edges. I'm trying not to paint in the middle. When I do the middle, I'm going to be going against the grain like this, back and forwards. Like so. And we're going to leave it at Rock Art Flesh. We're not going to go any higher than that. Now all that's left is to do this no fishing sign. Now, it was painted way back in the day. We didn't have many reds, so I'm guessing it's blood red. And I'm using a tiny brush and some watered down red paint, watered down blood red paint. I'm just going to freehand it as best I can on camera. So the original, don't know if you can see it very well. No fishing. It'll do, it's close enough. So there we go, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to give you a bit of a spin, use my hand as a turntable. So the 30-year-old, 25, 30-year-old river section restored as best I could back to its former glory. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up and a like, and look out for future videos. I'll be doing more scenery pieces, more working on my Mentors Marines, and I'm going to be doing a Necromunda series soon because I've got a campaign starting. So, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.